Now let's have a look at the session film on the theme Women's Rights and Legal Gaps. May I request my technical team to kindly relay the session film on women's rights and legal gaps.
Within the framework of a democratic polity, our laws, plans and programs, development policies have aimed at women's advancement in different spheres. Our constitution provides equal rights for both men and women from the very beginning.
Of course, our law promises equal rights. Then why the female workforce participation rate in our country is on decline for the past 3 decades? The female workforce participation rate in our country is just 20.3%.
Law ensures the right to education and the right to work for all the citizens of India. The state has policies which focus on women's education.
Yes, the literacy rate of Indian women is well over 70%, but the total labor force participation of married women is only half of that of the labor force participation of men.
Women's employment, even to this day, is largely shaped by the domestic and caregiving responsibilities in a way that men's are not.
Not only that, the domestic violence complaints increase year by year, and there are more than 10,000 dowry-death cases registered in the year 2020, even though we have Dowry Prohibition Act.
Maybe, but our women today are on the path of progress and economic independence. More than 80% of women today own bank accounts.
Probably they have, but can we say that they are free enough to save and spend this money in their own accord? According to the reports of the UNICEF, a quarter of women of reproductive age in India are still undernourished. In that case, what is the rate of women who own property? Is inheritance of property equally shared among both men and women in all communities over India?
Above all, what about the social security of women in India?
Law ensures justice for women. See how the court treated the convicts of Nirbhaya case.
Yes, law ensures justice. The court put forth guidelines for the security of women. Nirbhaya's case was one of the 24,923 recorded cases of rape in the year 2012. Yet, the rape cases have not declined since then.
The Constitution and our legal system ensures gender equality and social justice. Then where are the gaps between the provisions in the law, its execution and the results? And what steps do we need to ensure that these gaps are filled?
That indeed set the tone for the session, asking the questions, the right questions, even after 75 years of independence. Where are these gaps? And what are the women's rights which are enshrined? And what is the gap between these rights and the implementation? To deliver the welcome note for the session, may I now invite Srimati K. Shantakumari ma'am, Honorable Member of the Kerala Legislative Assembly, over to the dais.
Good morning, everyone. Respected dignitaries, often on the dais, ladies and gentlemen, my dear friends. First of all, I would like to express my warm welcome to all delegates to the first session of second day's National Conference. Today, all of us know that the 58th death anniversary of our first and former Prime Minister of India, Sri Jawaharlal Nehru, who was an Indian anti-colonial nationalist, secular humanist, social democrat, and who promoted parliamentary democracy, secularism, science and technology at that time. Right now, let us commemorate his parliamentary contribution to the nation. Today, we are going to discuss in this intellectual brainstorming sessions regarding women's right and legal gaps which exist in our country. In the previous sessions, we already discussed constitutional rights of women, women's role of freedom struggle, like that. Here we have to share our real thoughts regarding lacks of legal protection of women. Though we have plenty of women-friendly laws enacted since independence, something is still lacking in the stage of implementation of laws, like justice denied to the larger sections of women, the culprits still evading from the hands of laws. On this context, I strongly affirms that a powerful legal and judicial intervention is still needed to protect and strengthen the right of women in India and to ensure the implementation of laws. Anyway, our eminent panelists will discuss these things in very elaborate manner. And now I am constrained here to discharge my duty to welcome you all. Today we have got vibrant dignitaries to discuss on our subjects, women's right and legal gaps. First of all, I am cordially inviting Dr. Shashi Panja, who currently serves as a cabinet minister of the Department of Women and Child Development and Social Welfare in the state of Bengal. She was elected to the West Bengal Legislative Assembly from Shampugar constituency consecutively for 3 times. Madam, welcome. The next dignitary is Justice Anu Shivaraman, Judge High Court of Kerala. She served as standing counsel for Corporation of Cochin from 2001-2010, senior government pleader from January 2007, and special government pleader during 2010-2011. Madam, with immense pleasure, I welcome you to this session. Srimati Rakhi Birla, currently she is the youngest ever Deputy Speaker of Delhi Legislative Assembly. Whether she is present today? No, she is not present. We have to go. Our moderator, Srimati PK, Srimati Teacher. She is our beloved, encouraging and vibrant woman leader in Kerala state, and she served as Cabinet Minister for Women and Child, Social Welfare and Health in the Kerala Legislative Assembly, and former member of Parliament Logasabha, and now she is currently the Central Committee member of CPIM, the ruling party in Kerala. I heartily welcome you, teacher, to this special session. Then our personality who came here to express vote of thanks in this session, Srimati E.S. Bijimol. She was a member of Kerala Legislative Assembly. Madam, you are also welcome to this proud moment. And it is with immense pleasure, I would like to proudly welcome all other cabinet ministers, members of various legislative assemblies, my colleagues and other dignitaries who are present here from different parts of the country and who are responsible personality in the parliamentary democracy to the special sessions conducting in connection with Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, the 75th years of Indian independence. Speaker, yes, especially our Speaker of the Kerala Legislative Assembly, Sri M.B. Rajesh, and Secretary to the Kerala State Assembly is also presented here. I welcome them also. And now I am right now concluding my welcome speech by requesting our respected moderator, Srimati Teacher, to perform her duty in the sessions. Once again, I thank you all. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Distinguished guest on the dais and off the dais, Honorable Speaker, dear Sri M.B. Rajesh and other brothers and sisters. First of all, I express my revolutionary greetings to all. I express my gratitude to Kerala Legislative Assembly for organizing such an excellent National Women Legislators Conference and to all the women representatives who traveled a long way to come over here to make this event fruitful. Today, we are discussing about women's rights and legal gaps. Honorable Justice Anu Shivaraman, including Justice Anu Shivaraman, is here with us. everybody will speak very well against about the subject. I know it very well. We are always speaking about the law. There are so many laws for women. Dowry Prohibition Act, Dowry Prohibition Act, Sexual Harassment Act, Domestic Violence Act. These are examples. But laws are there. But in practical, where do we see the laws are implementing? Implementation is the problem. Main problem is the implementation. Our guest will speak about that. Let me quote Rosa Luxemburg. The most revolutionary thing one can do is always to proclaim loudly what is happening. So, we are here as part of a revolution to proclaim loudly what is happening to women in India. Women of India united and raised their voices for their freedom, which advanced the social freedom of India. We discussed yesterday the constitution rights and the intervention of women's intervention on freedom struggle. Our constitution too laid a strong democratic framework to protect women's rights. But the constitution is protecting women's rights? Last 75 years, we are searching, we are requesting the government, please pass the law and implement the law. But in practical, nothing is going to be done. It is our experience. We have legal provisions which promise the right to education. Right to education is there in our country for girls. The slogan is there for girls, so many slogans for girls. But our girls, lakhs of girls are not going to school. It is a very pathetic condition. Education, work, dignity, freedom of thought and expression, social security, and equal opportunities. Where there is no equal opportunities in our home, in our family, in working place, or administration sector, we can see equal opportunities. Women are not getting. Last 75 years, actually we want to think, where are we? Where we are? How many of our women get equal status and equal opportunities? In middle class, upper middle class, or financially backward communities? Are they getting equal opportunities or equal rights? Equal wages is there? Even in our state, so many sector, women are getting less wages than their male part. Women are getting low wages. Not everywhere, but in unorganized sector. Why can't we put a stop to the cases of domestic violence? In 2005, it is passed in Parliament. But every day we are hearing domestic violence and we can't imagine how cruel our society. Women are attacking, women are killing only because of she's a woman. Though we have a law, our society hasn't given up the system of dowry yet. Gender stereotyping is continuing in most of our homes and even in our schools. If we analyze what our media, advertisements, films, or serials are presenting. Nowadays, the cyber crime is increasing. So many medias are taking this opportunity to their publicity. If any crime against women or any cyber crime comes, or social media, some trolling is there, then if it is, if a woman include in it, then the media is continuously viewing to the people. Yesterday, we have an experience. Some illegally, some medias are creating and against the candidate. We can't imagine that the media is spreading this type of social crime, but we are seeing every day. Though, so gender stereotyping is continuing in most of our homes and even the schools and in society. So we want to take care our media also. Media is not supporting women. Our government is not supporting women. Women are not safe in India. That is my opinion. Our session is going to discuss about this subject. Very learned guests are here. So we want law, and law must implement it correctly in our country. There will be no gap. That is our aim. That is our opinion. So we have to fight for our rights. We have to fight to protection. We have to fight the implementation of our law, which is passed in Parliament and Assembly. Now, I am concluding my speech. I expect very valuable suggestion and opinion from our learned, distinguished guest. Our sisters will sure, I am expecting valuable opinion from there. I am concluding my speech now.
Thank you, Srimati Teacher, for setting the tone for the session. Before we invite our first speaker, Dr. Shashi Panja Madam, Honorable Minister for Women and Children Development from West Bengal, may I request my technical team to kindly relay a short film on the life and work of Dr. Shashi Panja.
Dr. Shashi Panja. Dr. Shashi Panja, Minister for Women and Child Welfare and Social Welfare, West Bengal, is also a medical doctor. A member of the West Bengal State Assembly from Shyampukur since 2011. She has made her political mark as a close associate of the All India Trinamool Congress leader Mamata Banerjee.
With a round of applause, let us welcome Dr. Shashi Panja for sharing her thoughts on the theme. Yes, Srimati Rakhi Birla Madam has now reached and she is amongst us on the stage. With a huge round of applause, let us welcome Srimati Anita Bhadil Madam, sorry. Rakhi Birla Madam is expected to come at any moment. Srimati Anita Bhadil Madam, who is Honorable MLA and former Minister from Rajasthan, has arrived. We would like to welcome her with a huge round of applause on behalf of the Kerala Legislative Assembly and the National Women Legislators Conference, Kerala. Welcome, ma'am. Now may I invite Dr. Shashi Panja for her address.
নমস্কার সকলকে শ্রদ্ধা এবং প্রণাম জানাই That in Bengali is namaskar, of course, and I pay my deep respects to all of you. Suprabhatam, Shubhakanam. That, of course, in Malayali I attempted to say again the same. I'm truly privileged to speak here today on the second day of this National Women's Legislators Conference, marking these 75 years of Indian independence. I'm of course very honored also to lead the delegation from West Bengal, and my colleagues are here present with me. I also thank them, Srimati Ashima Patro, Srimati Nayana Bandopadhyay, Srimati Firdausi Begum, and Srimati Arundhati Moitra are all here with me today. It's so prestigious for us to be here from the state of India, the only state and the only lady chief minister in India, Srimati Mamata Banerjee. So it is very prestigious for us, and we are really grateful to our Didi for sending us, representing all the MLAs of West Bengal. And of course, we are grateful to our Honorable Speaker, to Sri Biman Banerjee, for having given us this opportunity. And of course, our deep gratitude to Honorable Speaker of Kerala, Sri M.B. Rajeshji. Thank you also for your wonderful hospitality. Aditi herself is a glorious example of power of democracy. That is the theme set for this session, these two-day conference that we are having. And coming from a very humble and modest background, and rising to the pinnacle of leadership through her sheer grit, determination, hard work, and her vision, that is what Didi is. And as you can recall, that she's the only lady, she was the only lady Union Railway Minister, and also she's been a former 7 times MP. Not only that, last year in 2021, by the Times Magazine, she was counted as one of the 100 most influential leaders or people in the world. So that, I think, is a record which is formidable. And I hope I have not missed it, but I just thought that in the audio visual which was showed at the beginning of today's session, I don't know whether I missed Didi's picture, but if it is not there, I may request for an inclusion, because I think she deserves to be there as the only woman chief minister presently in India. Now, women's rights and legal gaps is what this session is about. I thank Honorable Srimati P.K. Srimati Teacher. She is the moderator. And also thank K. Santa Kumari ji, Honorable MLA, my colleague, who welcomed us all. It's nice to share the dais as a speaker with Justice Anu Sivaraman ji, and also Anita Bhadel, who's a MLA and former minister. Rakhi Birla ji could not turn up, and of course E.S. Bijimol is also here today to do the honors for us. So you have set the tone, Madam Moderator, and quite true, since yesterday we have been discussing this. In fact, during the start of the session also, we saw that when you are talking about concerns of women's issues, obviously those concerns means there are legal gaps. And that is precisely what we are trying to say in a very limited time today. But women's rights and status has been ably protected and upheld in the Constitution of India. I need not go through those various articles. Ma'am Moderator has been very kind, she's extended my time. The Constitution of India was created by the people for the people. But the most significant thing in the preamble is the last line, which says that we give ourselves to the Constitution. And that is so very precious, that we give ourselves to the Constitution. It is ours. So when we are so passionate about it and so proud about it, in our country, yes, there are women-specific legislations, there are women-related legislations, some has been spoken about, so I need not go into it. In fact, it was just been mentioned about certain very essential legislations and important, like the POSH, that is POSH, the Prevention of Sexual Harassment, DVA Act itself, the PCMA, and we are all very worried that these laws are there, but the gaps are also there. Though our constitutional laws enacted by successive union governments through parliament provided for non-discrimination and equality status to women, yet the gaps remain either due to improper or inadequate or absolutely non-implementation of these laws, or in fact due to lack of awareness of the provisions and benefits of these laws. There are also instances of states not according priority to the gender-positive laws. The existing mindset, which reinforces customs and traditions perpetuating this gender inequality expresses itself as, again, Madam Moderator was mentioning, the uneven wage gender patterns, the female feticide, female infanticide, marital rapes, crimes against women, the bully by apps and the sully deals, the online trolls, the abuses, the stalking, voyeurism, the list is endless and the fight continues. The state government, with all its political will, we feel that if the state government has its political will, then we can overcome these hurdles and correct the inequalities by framing such policies and prioritizing social welfare and protection of women. This is one effective and immediate way to plug those gaps. For example, in West Bengal, our Honorable Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee launched the state policy for empowerment of women way back in 2012, just 1 year into when she assumed charge as the first time as the Chief Minister of this state. Of course, Bengal also has its first women Chief Minister. So this state policy spoke about social, political, and economic empowerment. We've spoken about this yesterday. I mean, many states have also done this, but we also feel proud that right after Didi came in 2011, 2012 was the reservation of, that 50% reservation of for women in PRIs and ULBs. And right in 2013 was the first election, the local body election. And 2013 and 2018 actually pushed the women to the forefront of administration as policy decision makers. So we nearly have about 51% women representatives in our PRIs, irrespective of caste, creed, religion, economic background, social background, religion, and cutting across all political parties. I think this is also quite better than many of the larger states. In ULBs, and just recently concluded 108 municipalities, nearly 42% of women are elected representatives. In the corporations too, nearly 38 to 47% of women are elected as cooperators. This political empowerment acts as a catalyst, we feel, which opens up opportunities, and as much as it opens up opportunities, it opens up the risks, because it comes with responsibilities. And our women are learning to overcome those risks too, and create a level playing field for all the future generations of our ladies. But this again, as mentioned yesterday too, I do not, but I wish to re-emphasize that this is in sharp contrast to what is happening in Parliament, in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. The figures are there. Only 78 MPs are women in Lok Sabha. In Rajya Sabha, just about 12.7%, irrespective of the party that they belong to. But of course, these are substantially low compared to the global average. The Women's Reservation Bill is in limbo, and we are all talking about it, that there is such a big legal gap. But as a political party, All India Trinamool Congress, Mamata Banerjee has always given us the opportunities to fight elections for women in Bengal. So in Bengal Legislative Assembly, we have almost 41 lady MLAs, 41 of them, 14% that is, and 9 women ministers in the state cabinet, about 21%. That also includes me. I have also had this opportunity. This is again commendable in comparison to the percentage of the women MLAs. And I have the percentages and the data, but of course there's paucity of time. So I think West Bengal is doing pretty well in that. Right to education is enshrined in the Constitution, and the inclusion of the girl child in education still warrants our attention. West Bengal, I think we need to really place this example before you, because girl education, you mentioned about the education, the priority to girl education. The priority to education is reflected in the figures of GER and NER of our state in comparison to the national average. The GER is about 64% for girls in comparison to 54.6% national average, and NER is about 45.7 in comparison to the 35.6 national average. Girl education per se has received a major thrust through one of our schemes, Mamata Banerjee's schemes, and that is Konyasri, you must have heard about, which has been acclaimed by United Nations, where there is actually cash benefit transfer to the girls who have their own bank accounts. And I feel very proud because it goes through my department, the Women and Child Development. So it is just not the cash benefit transfer. Along with it, there is public advocacy. Along with this, there is social behavior change, communication strategies. Now we see a very confident girl. Her body language has changed through this scheme. And I think that is where the legal gaps you can plug if there is a legal gap. Because I can refer to a report of United Nations at 75 in the year 2020, which mentions that although financial inclusion was on the rise globally, a gender gap still persisted. Through financial literacy and inclusion, we are trying to close that gender gap in our state. We have almost 77 lakh children, girl children associated with this scheme. So Kanyasri again has the social message. Again, we have the laws in place, we have PCMA in place, but it discourages underage marriage. We are discussing, I mean, even Supreme Court and High Courts are discussing about child marriage, child marital rapes. In as much I will be coming very shortly to that. That underage marriage and, if there's enrollment, this is the basic criteria if you have to be with the scheme. So we are fighting against the evils of child marriage, even though Child Marriage Prohibition Act exists. But these Kanyasris are the ambassadors of social change themselves, and I feel that that legal gap has been breached by the scheme. But even though schemes like such are present, which reinforce positive impact of increased education and delayed marriages, we still realize that they are patriarchal beliefs and social norms which are deterrent to such things. Even though the law is there of PCMA, it has this legal gaps. The Act has failed to make all child marriages automatically void, and it has conveniently made it voidable. So there is a difference between void. When you declare a marriage void, there is no other option. But here they have made it voidable. So there is a huge discussion about it. And voidable contracts, if you need to make that valid, you need to take a legal recourse. We know that. And how many of such parents of underage marriages will actually go to the courts of the law? So per se, it should be encouraged to make it, legally void. An individual below 18 years is considered as minor as per the JJ Act and as per the POCSO. But child marital rape also needs to be re-examined in the best interests of the mental, physical, the sexual, the dignity of that child. I think that is very important that we discuss it. The right to life with dignity. The rights were there, we were discussing again, mentioning yesterday, and self-worth. Now that is assured by the Constitution of India, but there is much to be achieved. So again, West Bengal has a scheme which is called Lakshmi Bhandar, which is again her brainchild, Adidi's brainchild, which she has put. There is a significant push for gender equality. And there is a assurance of a minimum basic scheme put to the woman every month. And this is that money which she can spend without having to ask permission of anybody. So it's reaching out to about, say, 1,75 women with a stupendous annual budget of 14,000 crores. Again, it is implemented through my department. I'm proud about it because even the Nobel laureate Avijit Vinayak Banerjee, he had mentioned during times of COVID that money should be in the hands of the people. I think Didi did it because we went through this double trouble, life before COVID and life during COVID. But yes, the government flagship program like Manrega, which again is an act which assures that 1/3 of it should be allotted to women, the job should be given to the woman. Yes, of course, there are various very good figures of certain states. But again, in Bengal, it showed relatively, 2021, 22, out of the 3,642 lakh person days which were generated, 47% were women person days. So I think the woman actually helped cope with the crippling effects of the pandemic during through this Manrega scheme. So again, those legal gaps that it should be much more than 33%, I think is something that we should attach and associate with. With many men turning jobless during COVID, it was the rural women in Bengal who turned breadwinners through a scheme again which is called Ananda Dhara, which belongs to the Panchayat department, where about 10 lakh self-help groups were created with 1 crore women. So the emphasis was on self-enterprise, entrepreneurship, micro-enterprise. That was what the thought was behind it. We discuss about violence against women. India has ratified the CEDAW in 1993. And we are actually talking about the worst human rights violation that can happen, the violence against women. You're not allowed to be born. So you are doing, there is a PCPNDT Act in place, but you are actually trying to check the pregnant lady in utero. I myself do sonology. So I'm a sonologist myself, especially gynecological sonologist. And the first question which comes to me from, unfortunately, the mother-in-law is, ladka hai ya ladki hai? I mean, this was more prevalent before, and it's less prevalent now. I guess the questions have, are not that obvious this time. But I guess this is happening. So the missing girl child, the girl child is missed right when it is in the womb due to feticide, or after it is born due to infanticide, or even women in marginalized communities, the Dalits, where crimes are either invisible or even when exposed, they are deprived and denied of justice. We have seen this in our country. So laws will be there, but there is a need to look beyond the legal measures and ensure the woman access to justice, access to the legal resources, access to multidisciplinary support groups is something that we need to allow the woman to reach out to it. But the impunity to subvert justice and the support perpetrators get politically and socially creates again that legal gap. So there has to be a social change, a social reconstruction. Just before coming to Trivandrum, I went through a news clipping, and that was the Disha case. I think you remember the 26-year-old vet doctor who was gang raped and murdered, and then the alleged encounter killings which took place of the accused. But the Supreme Court very recently mentioned there were lapses in the FIR and said that whenever such information related to cognizable offenses committed against women or children is received by any police station of any jurisdiction, it should not only register the complaint, but also start the investigation immediately and then transfer it to the other police station for further investigation. So this is where Disha missed out. This is where her relatives are complaining that justice was denied to her. So sensitization is required for all our stakeholders, again to fill up that legal gap. The promise of a happy marriage, the lure of a very good job, elopement amongst our adolescent population, this is happening. And it has ended very tragically too. There are low conviction rates, the inability to catch the trafficker, the multiple hands which you go through, multiple traffickers that you go to, are also the legal gaps. The adolescent with the mobile phone, you have it. You see it everywhere. The girl or the boy with the mobile phone. Now that is giving access to online education, and you are allowing the child to engage with it through that phone. But she also navigates herself into that online virtual world, which may appear seemingly attractive, but there are lots of pitfalls too. So there is this danger of trafficking. Now, coming to the trafficking bill, which of course is round the corner. It has lapsed in 2018, and it has again gone for suggestions to all states. I think all of our states have been examining it and we've put our suggestions. But long before, West Bengal has a state policy of action against human trafficking. We again executed through our department. So we have a West Bengal task force in place, we have a state advisory committee, we have a proper guideline, and we have the child protection committees right in the villages to counter this trafficking. Sex workers, because ITPA and the trafficking bill is kind of coming together. Sex workers, the marginalized women, their children, their rights, their dignity. And as I was coming today, I went through the newspapers here, and quite fortunately we found the Supreme Court making a comment, and it says that Supreme Court wants full respect for the sex workers, and Supreme Court recognizes sex work as a profession. It need not be gainsaid that notwithstanding the profession, every individual in this country has the right to a dignified life under Article 21 of the Constitution, the court observed, and that sex workers are entitled to equal protection of the law. and criminal law. So, basically the new trafficking bill which is coming, it includes all kinds of trafficking, which is very good, which is the best part of it. It includes bonded labor, it includes organ trafficking, it includes the trafficking for CSE, the commercial sex exploitation. But the previous ITPA in 1956 or its amendment 1986 was not so encompassing. But we must also, the objections, the detractors to this bill, the current bill, which is yet to be passed, the detractors say that why are we also not discussing the future of these sex workers? I mean, why are these sex workers in this profession? Why do not we recognize the multiple factors that exacerbate their vulnerability and push them to sex work, which may be poverty, discrimination, whatever? So we must work to remedy this. Again, we hope that a future legal gap is not created, because there is an Immoral Traffic Suppression Act, which I mentioned, which is a premier legislation, but there were lots of omissions. Again, this particular transgender trafficking bill, some detractors do say that the bill topples the basic tenets of jurisprudence, from presumption of innocence to presumption of guilt. So the criminalization, and that's where the objections. Now, why I also speak about this is, of course, everybody will have their views, and it's open to the House also here, who is the protagonist to the bill and who are the detractors to it. But in Bengal, the case which has been fought is from the organization, it's called Durbar. And Durbar Mahila Samanvay Samiti, which looks after Sonagachi and the red light area, the district in Bengal. So they are the ones who are fighting the case. And incidentally, that particular district happens to be also in my Vidhan Sabha constituency. So they do keep getting back to us, and they feel that somehow the sex work has been criminalized and the free choice of its profession is being, looked other way, and the trafficking and sex work have got mixed. Supreme Court has also remarked about this, that yes, of course, forced victims should not be into this. I mean, nobody should be forced into it, and that is where one has to take the action. So this Supreme Court observation is extremely important today, especially when we were going to speak about it. So we hope that when it becomes a law after the regular parliamentary process, there will not be a legal gap again in that. Again, I would say that, as I said, that we have spat in the State Plan of Action Against Human Trafficking in Bengal. And in difficult COVID times, we looked after our sex workers, the transgenders, through free rations or even free COVID vaccines. All those reached out. I think definitely the other states also did it. It is definitely very important. Now again, very important, when we were mentioning about marital rapes, I think Kanimozi did mention about it yesterday, and maybe this may be the one or two last points I'll be saying, that it is disheartening to see a 1:1 split verdict in the Delhi High Court about adult marital rape. And I think, I guess all of our ladies think that it is a fight against misogyny. It is a fight against misogyny, because the case, of course, will be heard in Supreme Court, and it is my body, it is my choice, it is my consent. Violation of that consent is, of course, a human right violation. So there is a divided house in Delhi High Court, but there are lots of views all over the country about adult marital rape. I hope it gets a very progressive kind of an outlook. But due to the regressive mindset, the legal gaps, as I said, PCP and DT, that here we want a lady doctor. They are very happy when I am doing the regular ultrasound of the pregnant lady or of the girl for a gynecological complaint. So you're looking for a lady doctor, but you don't allow a girl to be born. You're looking for a lady officer, police officer, in the thana, in the police station, so that you can confide. You're looking for a lady judge. She's very much on stage in the courts of law. But you're looking for a lady tutor for my child. So I'm going out to work, and I'm very hopeful that my child will be safe with a lady tutor. So this is what it is like. So contradictory, and we don't allow the girl child to be born, or we don't want, everybody wants a boy child. So this is something, and very importantly, again, it was touched upon yesterday, was the domestic work. That's so unpaired and so uncared for, and there's no law. There's a legal gap. So unpaid care and domestic work, which remains stubbornly feminized, compromising with the woman's ability to earn an income and build her own career or her own assets. And this domestic work helps the entire family. It sustains the family, but yet it remains invisible and unsupported. Where is the law? This is, I think, very important because we still have done all our work before we step out of the houses to go outside to work. This is absolutely true. In Bengal, I think there is Bengal is a state of culture, progress, renaissance. Just the other day, 250 years, we observed the birth anniversary of Raja Ram Mohan Roy. We feel proud because he fought against Sati. So this can be done away with. He fought against Sati and he made the British abolish it. Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, he laid the very roots of girl education. We are all talking about it. We are all working for it. And social reforms and changing the status of women families in Bengal. He spoke about widow remarriage too. Rabindranath Tagore, coming from Bengal, Rabindranath Tagore must be mentioned, of course. We observe the entire month of April because it's his birth month. So Rabindranath Tagore said that for we women are not only the deities of the household fire, but the flame of the soul itself. So I feel, as we sit here, and I conclude, that we are all empowered women out here. The political empowerment being the most important, we have the powers to legislate. We have the powers to form laws. So let's form those laws, those good laws, which will encourage and take all our women ahead. I wish you all, thank you for listening to me patiently and wish us all a wonderful conference. Thank you again for this opportunity given to me to speak. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your insightful and words of wisdom. You had pointed out that we missed out the only lady chief minister who is there in India. Her photo was not seen. It was an omission from our side, and we regret it. Yes. Next, we would like to invite, as Dr. Shashi Panja ma'am was saying, that we want a lady judge and we do not find one, but we are happy and really proud that in our Kerala High Court we do have women judges also, and we are proud that one amongst them is sitting with us today. Before inviting Justice Anu Shivaramanji, Honorable Judge of Kerala High Court, I request my technical team to kindly relay a short film on the life and work of Justice Anu Shivaraman.
Justice Anu Shivaraman assumed office in Kerala High Court in 2015 as an additional judge, and she was appointed as a permanent judge in 2017. She, along with other women judges of Kerala High Court, has been the representative of a new era of gender equity in the high offices of the judiciary.
With a round of applause, let us welcome Justice Anu Shivaraman to share her thoughts on the theme.
Dignitaries on and off the dais, a very good morning to you all. Let me start by congratulating the organizers of this function for such a beautiful conference, which has been the need of the hour for ever so long, but at least in the 75th year of independence, we today have a conference of women legislators from all over the country. I'm so happy to be a part of this. Let me say that I'm not a part of this as an individual. I'm also participating in this conference to represent the women in the Kerala judiciary. We in the High Court have a working strength of 38 judges, out of which 7 are women. In the district judiciary of Kerala, where there is absolutely no quota set apart for women, we have a working strength of about 45% of women judges. In the cadre of municipal magistrates, which is the entry cadre for judges in Kerala, out of 200, which is the working strength, 125 are women. So here is a state which, without any quota being set apart for women, the women are marching on, and ahead. We do not want any concessions, just let us be, and we will show you the way. With that, let me come to the topic of today's discussion, women's rights and legal gaps. What are these gaps? There are two aspects to gaps. That is, the areas pertaining to women's rights which require legislation or legal intervention, but where there is none. They also pertain to those lacunae in the existing laws, through which people who offend provisions of laws enacted for protection of women's rights escape. Therefore, we are addressing the twin aspects of insufficiencies of legislation and the insufficiencies in the existing legislation. Law, especially penal laws, are those enacted to address specific issues encountered by society. The enactment of such laws is primarily the function of the legislature. But we are aware from experience that many of the legislations, including many which address issues relating to human rights, are enacted as a result of knee-jerk reactions to specific incidents and instances occurring in society, which excite the collective conscience of the society. The result is that the actual legislative exercise, which involves deep analysis, discussions, and attempts to assess the functioning of the laws and to address the issues that can arise in their enforcement, are given up in the interest of speed and perceived effectiveness. This can lead to lacunae in the legislation. These lacunae are perceived only in the implementation and the enforcement of the laws. Let me just give two examples here. For paucity of time, there are several examples. There are so many of them. But with regard to the lacunae in existing legislation, I will stop with just two examples. The problem of the penal provision in the Dowry Prohibition Act, which makes the giving or taking of dowry punishable, has resulted in a situation where a truly aggrieved person is actually unable to take recourse to the law, for the reason that she or her immediate family is also equally an offender of the law, because there has been an element of giving of the dowry along with the taking of the same. Therefore, though the Act has been in force in this country since 1961, the number of cases which has been registered under the Act and the number of convictions under its provisions are abysmal compared to the actual social menace of dowry existing in all strata of society. This specifically is the reason why we had to enact Section 498A and Section 304B in the IPC with regard to dowry harassments and dowry deaths. Since the Act was there since 61, it is because it is not sufficient that the other penal provisions had to be brought into the general law. Therefore, here is a case where there is specifically a lacuna in the legislation. Similarly, in the implementation of the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act 2012, which has stringent conditions including presumption of guilt in certain situations, which is indeed absolutely essential in the nature of the offences dealt with in the Act, we encounter cases of consensual sexual relationships between adolescents, which is completely acceptable in some sections of society, especially among tribal communities in Palakkad and Wayanad, being criminalized in spite of there being no real complaint of an offense by the woman concerned. It is when the juvenile becomes pregnant that a case is registered. This is not something which can be suppressed because she is entitled to medical help. She approaches the hospital only for the medical help for her pregnancy. And then a case is registered, a DNA analysis shows that there is an offender, and a crime is born. I'm sure this is the case in many of the tribal communities all over the country as well. This is something which is encountered in tribal communities, specifically in some of the districts in Kerala where there is tribal population. We therefore see that it is when the provision is implemented and cases reach courts of law that lacunae prevalent in the existing laws become evident. These aspects require to be taken into account and corrected by necessary amendments at the requisite time. For this exercise to be undertaken, There has to be a channel of communication between the executive, the judiciary, and you, the legislators, who are primarily responsible for rectification of the defects in the laws. With regard to the gaps in enactment of laws for addressing issues connected to women's rights as well, the framing of the law is definitely the role assigned to the legislature by our Constitution. This is simply so because the legislator has the mandate of the people to frame the laws. Here also, there is sometimes a delay in the framing of the law, which leads the judiciary to supply some of the omissions. I will refer to two specific instances alone here also. These are, one, the framing of the guidelines regarding harassment of women in the workplace by the decisions of the Apex Court in Visakhapatnam versus State of Rajasthan. Sexual harassment of women in the workplace was not a strange or unheard of phenomena. However, when a government servant who attempted to prevent a child marriage was raped by persons supporting such marriage and the matter reached the Apex Court, it was found that there was no effective legislation available in India for addressing the specific issue. Referring to the international conventions as being significant for the purpose of interpretation of the guarantee of gender equality, as also referring to the constitutional safeguards, the Apex Court proceeded to lay down the guidelines for addressing the issue of sexual harassment of women in the workplace. Though the judgment was rendered on 13th August 1997, and committees were set up on the basis of the said judgment in various establishments across the country, it was only in the year 2013 that a legislation was put into place, largely relying on the guidelines laid down by the court in Visakhapatnam. With regard to the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act 2019 also, the history is not very different. The National Legal Services Authority of India approached the Apex Court seeking legal recognitions for persons who fall outside accepted gender identities. The Apex Court, in its landmark decision reported in Nalsa versus Union of India and others, legally recognized the concept of the third gender and the transgender and upheld the rights of all such persons who fall outside the traditionally recognized gender identities, and also upheld the right of the individual to decide on an innate perception of one's own gender. The provisions of Part 3 of the Constitution of India, as also the international conventions and declarations, were relied on by the Apex Court in this path-breaking judgment. Here also, the judgment was rendered in 2014 and was later followed by the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act 2019, where a transgender person has been inclusively defined and their rights are sought to be protected. As has been stated here, we also see today the pronouncements of the Supreme Court with regard to the rights of prostitutes, of women and children who face the problems, there has been an attempt to address those issues as well. As the moderator of this discussion had pointed out, the issues are many, and are the answers forthcoming? I doubt it. It is for us as women legislators, members of the executive, members of the judiciary, and the women in public life to face these issues and find the solutions. This is in our collective interest. I would only stress before this esteemed audience the point that these issues highlighted in the judgments were not issues which were unknown or non-existent. These problems were existing in society. There was real lack of legislation to address the issue. There was also a perceived need for addressing the issue. However, necessary legislation has not been forthcoming in spite of the passage of years for whatever reason. My take on the situation is this: no, it is not for the courts to make law. The constitutional courts in this country have enough and more on their plate without encroaching into the foreign area of lawmaking. Yes, it is for the legislature to frame laws. But where the need is so real and emergent, and when the need is not met, who suffers? It is therefore our primary duty to see that laws are put in place to address the real issues facing the women of the country. It is for you, as women legislators, to explore the areas where legislation is required and rise to the expectations of the people by filling those gaps, with the ardent hope that these issues of women's rights will be properly met by the legislators of the country, especially by the women legislators, and that the lacunae in the laws and the lacunae of the laws are filled by necessary legislative action sooner rather than later, so that women of this country may enjoy their rights to the fullest. I conclude my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for throwing light on the landmark judgments made by the various courts of India, and also ending on a hopeful note that not sooner than later we can achieve what is enshrined in the Constitution for women and their legal rights. We have amongst us a very eminent speaker, the youngest Deputy Speaker of Delhi Legislative Assembly, Srimati Rakhi Birla ji, who has joined us today in this session. First, let us welcome her to this session. And may I also request my technical team to kindly relay a short film on Srimati Rakhi Birla ji before I invite her to share her views on the theme.
Rakhi Birla, Deputy Speaker of Delhi Legislative Assembly. Rakhi Birla is the Aam Aadmi Party MLA from Mangolpuri constituency. Formerly a journalist by profession, she has teamed up with Arvind Kejriwal during the Jan Lokpal Bill movement. She was the youngest cabinet minister of Delhi when she assumed office in 2013.
Huge round of applause. Let us welcome Srimati Rakhi Birla ji. Ma'am, we would like to listen to what you have to say on the topic.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। सबसे पहले तो आज़ादी के अमृत महोत्सव के अंतर्गत राष्ट्रीय महिलाओं का जितनी भी चुनी हुई हमारी महिलाएं हैं, चाहे वो लोकसभा की हैं, चाहे वो राज्यसभा से आती हैं या देश की अलग अलग विधानसभाओं में अपना प्रतिनिधित्व करती हैं, उन तमाम महिलाओं को केरल विधानसभा के अंदर इतनी खूबसूरती के साथ एक प्लेटफॉर्म पर लाने के लिए और इतने सुंदर आयोजन करने के लिए मैं सबसे पहले हृदय की गहराइयों से धन्यवाद करना चाहती हूँ केरल विधानसभा के माननीय स्पीकर एमबी राजेश जी का, केरल विधानसभा के तमाम पदाधिकारियों का, केरल राज्य की पूरी सरकार का और यहाँ आई हुई एक एक महिला प्रतिनिधि, चाहे वो राज्य से विधायक के रूप में प्रतिनिधित्व कर रही हैं या हमारे बीच में हाई कोर्ट का प्रतिनिधित्व करती हुई मैडम जज हमारे बीच में जिन्होंने मुझसे पूर्व अपना वक्तव्य दिया, लोकसभा राज्यसभा का प्रतिनिधित्व करती हुई हमारी साथी महिला यहाँ पर मौजूद हैं। आज का जो विषय है वो बहुत दिलचस्प है। महिलाओं के अधिकार और उनके बीच में आने वाले लीगल गैप, कानूनी बाधाएं कह लीजिए या कानूनी खाली जगह, खालीपन, ये विषय अपने आप में बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है। ये महत्वपूर्ण इसलिए है क्योंकि आज हम लोग आज़ादी का अमृत महोत्सव, मतलब आज़ादी के 75 साल पूरे हो रहे हैं, इसके उपलक्ष्य में इस कार्यक्रम को यहाँ आयोजित करते हुए इसमें पार्टिसिपेट कर रहे हैं, इसमें अपने आप को सहभागिता का प्रदान कर रहे हैं, अपना कीमती समय यहाँ पर लेकर आ रहे हैं। और ऐसे में आज़ादी के 75 सालों के बाद अगर चुनी हुई महिला विधायकों के बीच में इस विषय को रखा जाता है कि क्या महिलाओं के अधिकार हैं और उन अधिकारों के इम्प्लीमेंटेशन के लिए, उन अधिकारों को पाने के लिए क्या कानूनी बाधाएं आ रही हैं, क्या खालीपन कानूनी कार्रवाइयों के अंदर है, कहां पर खाली गैप, खाली जगह रह जाती है कि वो कानूनी अधिकार जो उन्हें मिले हैं संविधान के माध्यम से वो उनको भरपूर उनका फायदा नहीं उठा पा रही है। ये बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण विषय है, चिंता का भी और चर्चा का भी। मैं आज इस मंच के माध्यम से जिस भी विशेषज्ञ ने इस विषय को यहाँ पर चर्चा के लिए, चिंतन के लिए, मंथन के लिए रखा है, मैं उसको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देती हूँ, क्योंकि आज हमारा भारतवर्ष आज़ादी के 75 साल पूरे कर रहा है। लेकिन ये जो हमारा विषय है महिला राइट, विमेन राइट्स एंड लीगल गैप, इसका एक उदाहरण मैं हमारे बीच में ही देती हूँ। यह हॉल पूर्ण रूप से भरा हुआ है, थोड़ा थोड़ा खाली भी है। यहाँ पर चुनी हुई महिला विधायक, सांसद, लोकसभा, राज्यसभा, अधिकारी सब लोग हैं। मुझसे पूर्व 2 वक्ताओं ने बहुत ही गर्मजोशी के साथ, बहुत सुंदर उदाहरणों के साथ अपने वक्तव्य को दिया, लेकिन मैं जब वहां बैठी थी तो बैठे बैठे इस चीज को बहुत बारीकी से देख रही थी और महसूस कर रही थी कि आधे से ज्यादा लोगों को फर्क ही नहीं पड़ रहा कि इस मंच पर हो क्या रहा है, इस मंच पर बोल क्या रहा है, बोला क्या जा रहा है, किस विषय पर चर्चा हो रही है। कुछ लोग मुझे थम्स अप कर रहे हैं, आप ताली बजाकर भी मेरे को इनकरेज कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि महिला होना अपने आप में मुझे लगता है ईश्वर का बहुत बड़ा आशीर्वाद है। और हम खुद को कहीं ना कहीं कमजोर समझते हैं, मानते हैं, इसीलिए जो संविधान के माध्यम से हमें अधिकार दिए गए हैं उनको लेने में हम खुद से डरते हैं, इसलिए वो जगह खाली रह जाती है, इसलिए वहां पर लीगल गैप, खालीपन, खाली स्थान आ जाता है। क्योंकि मैं खुद ही अपने अधिकारों को लेने के लिए डरती हूं, घबराती हूं, अपने आप से बात करती हूं कि अगर मैंने खुली विचारधारा के साथ अपनी आवाज को बुलंद करा तो मेरे बगल में बैठे हुए लोग मेरे बारे में क्या सोचेंगे, मेरे सामने बैठे हुए लोग मेरे बारे में क्या सोचेंगे। ज्यादातर लोग, अभी जब मुझसे पूर्व हमारे जज महोदया, मिनिस्टर ऑफ वेस्ट बंगाल अपनी स्पीच डिलीवर कर रही थी तो सब लोग फोन में लगे हुए थे, कोई सेल्फी ले रहा था, कोई कुछ और देख रहा होगा। अगर हम देश की चुनी हुई महिला अपने अलग अलग राज्यों को छोड़कर 3 दिवसीय सम्मेलन के अंदर अपने अधिकार, अपने कर्तव्य, अपनी जिम्मेदारियों को ना समझेंगी और ना उस पर चर्चा करेंगी तो हम वो महिलाएं जिन्होंने हमें चुनकर भेजा है, जिनके लिए हम एक आशा की किरण है, जिनके लिए सरकारों में चुनी गई महिलाएं एक उम्मीद की किरण है, उनकी उम्मीदों पर कैसे खरा उतरेंगे। आज मुझे इस मंच के माध्यम से इस विषय पर भी चिंता का जो है जाहिर करनी पड़ रही है, क्योंकि वुमेन्स राइट्स, संविधान ने महिलाओं को बहुत अधिकार दिए हैं, समानता का अधिकार दिया है, अपनी बात को रखने का अधिकार दिया है, कानूनी रूप से अपनी लड़ाई को लड़ने का अधिकार दिया है, शिक्षा का अधिकार दिया है। तमाम वो अधिकार जो इस देश की आधी आबादी पुरुषों को मिले हैं, लगभग सभी वो अधिकार, या उनसे ये कह लीजिए कि उनसे ज्यादा अधिकार देश का संविधान हमें देता है, लेकिन हम उन अधिकारों को अपने लिए उपयोग कर सके, अपने फायदे में उसको सफलतापूर्वक ले सके, हम उससे वंचित रह जाती हैं। क्यों? क्योंकि हम खुद जागरूक नहीं हैं। आज मुझे ये कहते हुए बिल्कुल हर्ज नहीं है, बिल्कुल गुरेज नहीं है, और बहुत सारी महिलाएं अंदर अंदर मेरी बात को जो है सहमति जताएंगी। आज चाहे मैं पंचायत सदस्य हूं, चाहे मैं गांव की प्रधान हूं, चाहे मैं निगम की पार्षद हूं, चाहे मैं विधायक हूं या मैं सांसद हूं, मंत्री हूं या स्पीकर हूं, आज भी अगर मैं महिला हूं तो प्रत्यक्ष और अप्रत्यक्ष रूप से मेरे अधिकारों का प्रयोग मेरा पिता, पति या भाई करता हुआ दिखाई देता है, जो कि सबसे बड़ी विडंबना कह लीजिए कि हमारी भारतीय राजनीति के अंदर है। और मैं इस मंच के माध्यम से तमाम अपनी साथी विधायकों को ये कहना चाहती हूं कि पार्टी पॉलिटिक्स से ऊपर उठकर अगर हम इस देश की जिम्मेदार महिलाएं हैं तो जिस पद पर हम बैठी हैं, जिस राज्य का प्रतिनिधित्व कर रही हैं, जिस लोकसभा क्षेत्र का, विधानसभा क्षेत्र का प्रतिनिधित्व कर रही हैं, उस विधानसभा, लोकसभा के क्षेत्र का, अपने संसदीय क्षेत्र का प्रतिनिधित्व करते हुए वहां की महिलाओं की आवाज बुलंद करने से पहले अपने आप को बुलंद करना होगा, अपने अधिकारों के ऊपर ध्यान देना होगा, अपने विचारों के ऊपर ध्यान देना होगा कि अगर आज मैं विधायक हूं तो मैं स्वयं अपने अधिकारों का पालन करूंगी, अपने अधिकारों के साथ साथ अपने क्षेत्र की जिम्मेदारियों को मैं स्वयं उठाऊंगी। अगर मैं यहां तक पहुंची हूं तो निश्चित तौर पे पुरुष और महिला दोनों ने मुझ पर विश्वास जताया है। पुरुष और महिलाओं के हित में मैं बेहतर से बेहतर कानून क्या बना सकती हूं, उन कानूनों को बनाने के लिए मैं बेहतर से बेहतर योगदान क्या दे सकती हूं, इस पर पल पल विचार हमें करना पड़ेगा। हम लोगों को अब यहां पर यह फैसला लेना पड़ेगा। 21वीं शताब्दी समाप्ति की ओर है। आजादी का 75वां साल हम लोग मनाने जा रहे हैं इस 15 अगस्त के अंदर, लेकिन फिर भी चंद मुट्ठी भर महिलाओं को अगर देश की राजनीति में छोड़ दिया जाए तो आज भी हम सब महिलाएं फैसले लेने से पहले अपने आसपास एक सपोर्टिंग हैंड ढूंढती हैं कि अगर मैं अकेली निकली, मैंने अकेला ये फैसला लिया तो लोग मेरे बारे में क्या सोचेंगे। लोग तुम्हारे बारे में यही सोचेंगे कि नारी हो तुम और सर्वशक्तिमान हो और तुम्हारी शक्ति के आगे अच्छे अच्छे लोगों को झुकना पड़ेगा, बशर्ते कि तुम लोगों को अपनी शक्ति की पहचान करनी पड़ेगी। क्योंकि अधिकार तो बहुत है। बाबा भीमराव अंबेडकर जी ने हम महिलाओं को जब वोट देने का अधिकार, नौकरी करने का अधिकार, घर की चार दीवारी से बाहर निकलकर आजादी से सांस लेने का अधिकार दिया, तो उन्होंने ये सपना नहीं देखा था कि जब हम बड़े बड़े पदों पर बैठेंगी तो हम लोगों को सपोर्टिंग हैंड की जरूरत पड़ेगी, हम लोगों को किसी सपोर्ट की जरूरत पड़ेगी। अभी मैडम ने बहुत अच्छी बात बोली कि केरल के जितने भी न्यायालय हैं केरला के अंदर, सबके अंदर बिना किसी रिजर्वेशन के, बिना किसी सपोर्ट के ज्यादा से ज्यादा महिला वकील और महिला न्यायाधीश हैं। तो क्यों फिर आज ऐसी जरूरत पड़ गई है देश भर के अंदर कि हम लोगों को रिजर्वेशन पर चर्चा करने की जरूरत पड़ रही है, हम लोगों को बाकी चीजों पर चर्चा करने की जरूरत पड़ रही है। अगर वास्तव में हमें चर्चा करनी है महिलाओं को सशक्तिकरण देने की, महिलाओं को मजबूती देने की, और जो ये लीगल गैप है महिलाओं को अधिकार पाने के में, इन गैप्स को अगर फिल करना है, इनको खत्म करना है, तो सिर्फ और सिर्फ एक ही चीज पर हम लोगों को काम करने की जरूरत है, वो है शिक्षा। वो है शिक्षा। जब हम लोग शिक्षित होंगे, अपने अधिकारों को जो महिला जान लेगी, उसको फिर किसी हेल्पिंग हैंड की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी। मैं ये नहीं कहती कि सहयोग लेना बुरा है, मैं ये नहीं कहती कि किसी साथी का, चाहे वो पिता के रूप में हो, चाहे वो पति के रूप में हो, भाई के रूप में हो, या एक बहुत अच्छे कार्यकर्ता के रूप में हो, उसका सहयोग लेना बुरा है। लेकिन अपने विचारों को किसी की छवि के नीचे चलाना, मुझे लगता है वो हम अपनी शक्ति को कम कर रहे हैं। तो आज ये जो हमारा विषय है विमेन्स राइट्स एंड लीगल गैप्स, तो इसका सिर्फ और सिर्फ एक ही, मुझे लगता है इस बीमारी का एक ही इलाज है, वो है शिक्षा, अवेयरनेस। अब सिर्फ शिक्षा किताब ही नहीं कि पहली से 12वीं तक हम स्कूल चले गए, फिर 12वीं के बाद हमने ग्रेजुएशन कर ली, ग्रेजुएशन के बाद हम लोगों ने हायर डिग्री ले ली। नहीं, जिस कार्य में हम हैं, जिस पद पर हम आसीन हैं, जो हमारी जिम्मेदारी है, उसके बारे में पढ़कर हमारी क्या अधिकार है, क्या कर्तव्य है, मैं 5 साल के लिए चुनकर जिस पद पर बैठी हूं, आने वाले इन 5 सालों के अंदर मेरा जो संसदीय क्षेत्र है, मेरी जो विधानसभा है, मेरा जो गांव है जहां से मैं प्रधान चुनकर आई हूं, उन क्षेत्र के लोगों के लिए मैं एक महिला प्रतिनिधित्व देते हुए कैसे कैसे काम करूं ताकि इस देश की राजनीति के अंदर इस बात को पूर्ण रूप से स्थापित किया जाए कि अगर राजनीति, जो कि सभी चीजों की चाबी है, देश के विकास की भी, देश के लोगों की आर्थिक उन्नति की भी, तरक्की की भी और समृद्धि की भी, उस पर जब एक महिला शासक सरकार चलाती है तो किस प्रकार से देश प्रगति करता है, इस पर हम लोगों को विचार करने की जरूरत है। क्योंकि अगर देश की सर्वोच्च संस्था, चाहे वो लोकसभा हो, चाहे राज्यसभाएं हो, या फिर राज्य की सर्वोच्च संस्थाएं विधानसभाएं हैं, जब यहाँ पर चुनी हुई महिलाएं जो अपने अधिकार और अपनी जिम्मेदारियों को समझती हैं, इसका पूर्ण रूप से उपयोग करने की मंशा के साथ और लक्ष्य के साथ उस गद्दी पर बैठेंगी, तो मुझे लगता है जो आखिरी तबके में लोग खड़े हैं, चाहे वो मतदाता हो, चाहे वो हमारे बच्चे हों, उनको बेहतर से बेहतर योजनाएं, परियोजनाएं और अधिकार डिलीवर करने की क्षमता और शक्ति वो चुनी हुई महिला रखती है, बशर्ते कि हम लोगों को अपने आप को पहचानना है और सबसे पहले अपने अधिकारों को समझना है और अपने अधिकारों को लेने के लिए जो खालीपन है, जो लीगल गैप्स है, उसको भरने का प्रयास आज अभी इसी सभागृह से हम लोगों को शुरू करने की जरूरत है। मैं बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देना चाहती हूं आप सभी लोगों का कि आप लोगों ने मुझे सुना, आप लोगों ने मुझे मौका दिया कि मैं अपने शब्दों को आपके सामने रख सकूं और इतने महत्वपूर्ण विषय के ऊपर अपने जो भी मेरे विचार है उनको आपके समक्ष रख सकूं। तो मुझे उम्मीद है कि आज से हम महिला विधायक, महिला सांसद किसी भी संसदीय क्षेत्र से, किसी भी विधानसभा क्षेत्र से आती हैं, तो आज हम इस बात पर जरूर मंथन या चिंतन करेंगी कि हाँ, मुझे चुने हुए 2 साल हो गए, 1 साल हो गया, या हो सकता है 4 साल 3 साल भी हुए हों। इतने समय में मैंने अपनी सिर्फ और सिर्फ अपने बूते पर अपने क्षेत्र के विकास के लिए, अपने लोगों के विकास के लिए, अपने लोगों को आगे ले जाने के लिए मैंने क्या जिम्मेदारी ली? क्या मैंने भेड़ चाल चली जो बाकी लोग कर रहे हैं, वही पॉलिसीज को इम्प्लीमेंट किया? क्या मैंने सिर्फ और सिर्फ दूसरों के कंधे पर रखकर अपने आप को आगे ले जाने का काम किया, या खुद एक जिम्मेदार प्रतिनिधित्व देते हुए सर्वसम्मति के साथ अपने फैसले को इंप्लीमेंट करते हुए इस बात को साबित किया है कि मुझसे पूर्व जो पुरुष इस क्षेत्र का प्रतिनिधित्व करते थे, मैं उनसे बेहतर प्रतिनिधित्व कर रही हूं या नहीं कर रही, मैं उनसे बेहतर सर्विसेज दे रही हूं नहीं दे रही। जिस दिन हम महिलाएं इस बात पर चिंतन मंथन कर लेंगी कि हम लोग भी देश की जो 50% आबादी है, 50% जो पुरुष आबादी है, उनसे कम नहीं है। उनके भी 2 हाथ पैर हैं, मेरे भी 2 हाथ पैर हैं, उनकी भी बुद्धि है, मेरी भी बुद्धि है, उनको भी जनता ने चुना है, मुझको भी जनता ने चुना है। तो मैं क्यों अपने फैसले लेते वक्त दूसरों का मुंह देखूं? मैं भी मजबूती से प्रथम पंक्ति में आकर अपने फैसले को लूं, क्योंकि ये मेरा अधिकार है। और इस फैसले को लेने के लिए अगर कोई लीगल गैप है तो सबसे पहले उस लीगल गैप को मुझे भरना होगा। तभी जिस बेटी ने, जिस बहन ने, जिस माँ ने हम लोगों को यहाँ चुनकर भेजा है, तभी हम उनको अच्छी शिक्षा दे पाएंगे, उनको सुरक्षा दे पाएंगे, उनका काम का जो माहौल है, जो उनका कार्यस्थल है, उनको वहां पर अच्छा एटमॉस्फेयर दे पाएंगे। तभी इस देश की 50% आबादी को मजबूती मिल पाएगी। और फिर वो दिन दूर नहीं जब इस देश के अंदर महिला सशक्तिकरण होते हुए इस बात का प्रमाण साबित होगा कि ये देश सिर्फ और सिर्फ देवी देवताओं में भी जो देवियों को सर्वोपरि मानता है, जो 1 बार नहीं 2-2 बार साल में नवरात्रि मनाने वाला देश, कन्या पूजन करने वाला देश, अब जो है ये आगे बढ़ रहा है। क्योंकि यहाँ की जो चुनी हुई प्रतिनिधि हैं, अभी तक इनको अपनी शक्तियों की पहचान नहीं थी, इसीलिए जो इनके अधिकार थे चुनाव लड़ने के, वो अधिकार तो इन्हें दे दिया गया। पार्टी ने कहीं किसी राज्य में 10 टिकटें दे दी, किसी में 8 दे दी, हो सकता है किसी में ज्यादा सीटें हो तो वहां 20 भी दे दी, और जनता ने इनके अधिकार को, इनके प्रतिनिधित्व को स्वीकार भी किया। लेकिन स्वयं हम चुनी हुई प्रतिनिधित्व महिलाओं को, जो वो लीगल गैप है, जिस चीज पर मैं बार बार फोकस कर रही हूं, जो वो कानूनी गैप है, उसको खुद कदम उठाकर भरना होगा। जब हम अपने लिए उस लीगल गैप को भरेंगे तो जो चुनकर हमें जनता भेजती है, उनके अधिकारों की आवाज भी हम मजबूती से बुलंद करेंगे। मुझे लगता है मैंने आप सबको बहुत ज्यादा बोर कर दिया है, तो मैं अपने शब्दों को यही विराम देती हूं। मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा आप सब लोगों से मिलकर। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, बहुत बहुत आभार। जय हिंद, जय भारत।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद राखी बिरला जी for that very inspirational speech of yours. I'm sure that you're setting an example for all the future girls and women who are seeing and watching and hearing to you now. Next, we have amongst us Srimati Anita Bhadel ji, Honorable MLA and former Minister from Rajasthan Legislative Assembly. Before inviting her over to share her views, may I request my technical team, may I request her to share her views on the stage. Yes.
सबसे पहले तो मैं यहाँ डाइस पर बैठी हुई सभी महिलाओं का बहुत बहुत स्वागत करती हूँ, अभिनंदन करती हूँ। इस पैनल को मेरे साथ जिन्होंने शेयर किया है, ऐसी शशि पंजा जी जो वेस्ट बंगाल से आती हैं, जुडिशरी से हमारी अनु जी, अनु ने बहुत ही सुंदर तरीके से वीमेंस राइट्स एंड गैप्स के बारे में हम सबको बताया और टेक्निकल पॉइंट्स आपने शेयर किए हम सबके साथ में अभी जिनको हमने सुना, ऐसे राखी जी जिन्होंने बहुत ही मोटिवेशनल स्पीच यहाँ इस डाइस से दिया है। मैं सबसे पहले तो इस कॉन्फ्रेंस के आयोजन के लिए केरल विधानसभा और केरल के स्पीकर माननीय MV राजेश जी का बहुत बहुत आभार व्यक्त करती हूँ, अभिनंदन करती हूँ, क्योंकि उन्होंने इतनी सुंदर अपॉर्चुनिटी हम सब महिलाओं को दी है। अभी जो सब्जेक्ट हम डिस्कस कर रहे हैं बहुत सुंदर सब्जेक्ट है। बहुत सारे इश्यूज़ पर हम बात करते हैं, महिलाओं की राइट्स पर तो हम बहुत बात करते हैं और ले भी लेते हैं, लेकिन उनमें जो गैप्स हैं कभी हमने उनके ऊपर ध्यान नहीं दिया। अभी राखी जी ने जो बताया, मैं चूँकि राजस्थान से आती हूँ और राजस्थान से मेरी वुमेंस MLAs भी यहाँ आई हैं। हम 9 MLAs इस कॉन्फ्रेंस में भागीदारी कर रहे हैं। हमारी मिनिस्टर ममता भूपेश जी, सफिया जी, कल्पना जी, मनीषा जी, देन प्रीति जी एंड दीप्ति जी इसी आशा के साथ यहाँ आए थे कि हमें और स्टेट से और जो सब्जेक्ट्स यहाँ मिल रहे हैं उन पर क्या प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, क्या चैलेंजेस हैं, उनको सुनने को मिलेगा और वहाँ से कुछ सीखने को मिलेगा, जिससे जो वर्क हमारा है लेजिस्लेशन का उसको हम कैसे इम्प्लीमेंट कर पाएँ अपनी कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसी के साथ में, अपनी विधानसभाओं में, अपनी लेजिस्लेटिव असेंबलीज में। क्योंकि हम चुन के तो आते हैं, जैसा राखी जी ने कहा। मैं आपका ध्यान आकर्षण करना चाहूँगी, रेणु जी का ध्यान आकर्षण करना चाहूँगी कि हम चुन के तो आते हैं, लेकिन कितनी महिला MLAs हैं जो लेजिस्लेशन के फॉर्मेशन में अपनी 100% सहभागिता देती है। जब कोई बिल हमारे लेजिस्लेशन में आता है, विधानसभा में ले डाउन होता है, तो उस बिल पर हम कितनी महिलाएं डिस्कस करती हैं, कितने संशोधन हम देते हैं, वो बिल बहुत अच्छे से इम्प्लीमेंट हो सके, फील्ड में जा सके, उसके लिए कितना हमारा ध्यान होता है। शायद इस बात पर हम बहुत गौर नहीं करते हैं। इसलिए बाबा साहेब भीमराव अंबेडकर जी ने संविधान की प्रस्तावना में ये बात स्पष्ट रूप से लिखी है कि लैंगिक आधार पर कोई भेदभाव नहीं होगा। लेकिन वो जो अधिकार हमें मिले हैं, अधिकार पाने के लिए तो बहुत आंदोलन होते हैं, अधिकार मिल भी जाता है। 2 उदाहरणों से रेणु जी ने इसको डिफाइन किया है। डॉरी वाला बहुत अच्छा उदाहरण आपने दिया। डॉरी के लिए कानून बना है, लेकिन क्या वो समाप्त हुआ है क्या? आज़ादी के 75वें वर्ष में भी आज हम इस बात को डिस्कस करने के लिए सभागार में एकत्रित हुए हैं, तो क्या ये हमारे सामने चुनौती नहीं है? क्या ये हमारे सामने यक्ष प्रश्न नहीं है कि कानून बन गया, अधिकार मिल गया कि एक बालिका को 18 साल की उम्र के बाद में ही विवाह उसका किया जा सकता है। लेकिन फिर भी आज भी मैं आपको बताना चाहती हूँ, NFSS के रिकॉर्ड के अनुसार, की रिपोर्ट्स के अनुसार, आज भी 2019-2020 में 23% जो विवाह हैं वो बाल विवाह हो रहे हैं। 23%। ये हमारे लिए बहुत बड़ा सोचने की बात है, ये हमारे लिए बहुत बड़ा गैप है कानून बनने के बाद भी। और सिर्फ ऐसा नहीं है कि कानून 2006 में ही बना है, इससे पहले भी 1929 में पहली बार बाल विवाह निषेध कानून बना और उसमें यह मैंडेटरी किया गया कि 14 साल से छोटी बच्ची का विवाह नहीं कर सकते। उसके बाद संशोधन आया 1978 में कि उसकी उम्र 18 की गई और फिर संशोधन आया अभी 2021 में 21 दिसंबर। यहाँ कुछ MPs बैठे होंगे, उनको शायद ये ध्यान है कि भारत सरकार एक संशोधन लेकर के आई एक रिपोर्ट्स के आधार पर, और उन्होंने ये कहा है कि हम चूंकि बाल विवाह नहीं रोक पा रहे हैं, इसलिए 21 साल की उम्र को तय किया जा रहा है। और वो अभी स्टैंडिंग कमेटी में बिल है, और स्टैंडिंग कमेटी में कितनी महिला MLAs है उसमें मेंबर? उन्होंने अपना सुझाव दिया है कि इस बारे में कि हम जब 1978 से 29 से ये बिल हमने बना रखा है, हिंदुस्तान की आज़ादी से पहले से ये बिल है, उसके बावजूद भी मैं आकर्षण करना चाहूँगी ध्यान कि हम इस समस्या पर क्यों नहीं विजय प्राप्त कर सके, इस समस्या का क्यों नहीं समाधान कर सके। और चूंकि ये समस्या है और इसी वजह से मेरे को लगता है कि एजुकेशन तो एक बहुत बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है ही, लेकिन उसके साथ साथ में चाइल्ड मैरिज भी एक बहुत बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है महिलाओं की लिटरेसी के लिए, महिलाओं के हेल्थ के लिए और महिलाओं की उन्नति के लिए। तो ये बहुत बड़ा एक उदाहरण है जिसको मैंने आपके सामने रखा है, क्योंकि हम कहते हैं कि महिलाओं को बहुत सारे राइट्स मिले, अब तो प्रॉपर्टी में भी राइट मिल गया। कल ये डिस्कशन इसी मंच से हुआ था कि महिलाओं को अपनी पैतृक संपत्ति में भी अधिकार मिला है, पर अभी भी बहुत सारे इश्यूज़ हैं। दूसरा इशू मैं आपके सामने डिस्कस करना चाहूँगी, हमने महिला और पुरुष को एक समान माना है। ये जरूरी नहीं है कि एक एकल महिला मैरिज करे ही करे, वो स्वतंत्र रूप से अविवाहित भी रह सकती है, लेकिन क्या वो अविवाहित महिला को गोद लेने का अधिकार है क्या? किसी चाइल्ड को अडॉप्ट करने का राइट है क्या? पर हम जानेंगे कि उसको वो राइट नहीं है। इसलिए नहीं है वो राइट क्योंकि आज भी सोसाइटी में, अब जब हम हिंदुस्तान के दृष्टिकोण से ये बात करते हैं, इंडिया के टेक्स्ट में जब हम ये बात करते हैं, तो हमारी सोसाइटी, हमारा कल्चर, ये सब हमारे बीच में कहीं ना कहीं बाधा बनते हैं। हमारा परिवेश, क्योंकि हमारा परिवेश एक पारिवारिक परिवेश है। मैरिज क्योंकि इंस्टीट्यूशन मैरिज है, वो एक इंस्टीट्यूशन है। इस वजह से इन सब कानूनों का किस संदर्भ में कैसे पालन हो और कैसे हम सक्सेस ले सके, ये एक बहुत बड़ा यक्ष चिन्ह है जिनका समाधान हमें यहीं बैठ करके ढूंढना होगा, तभी इस कॉन्फ्रेंस का सक्सेस है। क्योंकि हम वहाँ बैठे हैं जहाँ से देश को और स्टेट्स को हम गवर्न करते हैं। इसलिए दूसरी बात, चूंकि हम अनेकों बार कहते हैं कि महिला को समान वेतन का अधिकार है, महिला को वर्क प्लेस पर अच्छी कंडीशन का अधिकार है, और महिला को वर्क प्लेस पर आप महिला उत्पीड़न नहीं कर सकते। हमें मातृत्व लाभ का अधिकार है, ये हम सब जानते हैं कि महिलाओं को मातृत्व लाभ का अधिकार है। वो प्रेगनेंसी में छुट्टी ले सकती है, सवेतन उसको नियोक्ता को पैसा भुगतान करना पड़ेगा, परंतु वो किस कंडीशन में है? जब उसका एम्प्लॉयमेंट या तो स्टेट गवर्नमेंट में हो या ऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर में हो। अनऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर में क्या हम महिलाओं को ये लाभ दिला पाए हैं क्या? और कितनी % लेबर है जो अनऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर में काम करती है? बहुत। ऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर में फ्यू, 5%, 6%, 7%, लेकिन ऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर में बहुत, इससे 4 गुना लेबर जो वुमेन लेबर है, लेकिन हम उनको ये बेनिफिट्स नहीं दिला पाए। यह है लेबर के तहत हमारे गैप्स, जिन गैप्स को हमें सोच समझकर उन्हीं का में से रास्ता निकाल करके, रास्ता निकालना हमारा काम है। हमें वो रास्ते ढूंढने होंगे, हमें वो उपाय ढूंढने होंगे, ताकि हम महिलाओं की इन प्रॉब्लम्स का समाधान कर सकें। हम एजुकेशन के बारे में क्या कर सकते हैं? भी वेस्ट बंगाल से आई हुई मेरी बहन बहुत अच्छे से कह रही थी कि ममता बनर्जी ने एजुकेशन के बारे में डायरेक्ट बेनिफिट स्कीम्स को लॉन्च करके एजुकेशन को बढ़ावा दिया। हम जितने भी स्टेट्स हैं वो सब चाहते हैं कि हमारे स्टेट में एजुकेशन, गर्ल्स चाइल्ड एजुकेशन के बारे में बहुत अच्छे से प्रोग्रेस हो। केरला तो हमारे सामने बहुत उदाहरण है, क्योंकि केरला में आप देखिए, मैम जैसा कह रही थी, बिना रिजर्वेशन के आउट ऑफ 200, 120 जो मेंबर्स हैं वो लेडीज़ जुडिशरी में हैं, बिना रिजर्वेशन के हैं। तो इनका सबसे बड़ा बेनिफिट ये है कि यहाँ एजुकेशन है, और एजुकेशन की वजह से ये सारे गैप्स को फुलफिल किया जा सकता है। राइट्स तो हैं, लेकिन उन राइट्स के गैप्स को पूरा करना ये हम सब की जिम्मेदारी है। क्योंकि मैडम ने मुझे 10 मिनट्स ही दिया है, मैंने फिर भी 15 मिनट लिया है, और इसलिए मैं अपनी बात को, क्योंकि सारे इश्यूज़ यहाँ डिस्कस हुए हैं, इसलिए मैं अपनी बात को यहीं समाप्त करते हुए एक बार निवेदन करती हूँ कि हम अक्सर कहते हैं, एक नहीं 2-2 मात्राएँ, नर से भारी नारी। एक नहीं 2-2 मात्राएँ, नर से भारी नारी। नर में तो एक भी मात्रा नहीं है, लेकिन नारी में 2-2 मात्राएं हैं। वो भारी है, पर वो भारी कैसे बन सकती है? वो हम सब के कंधों पर ये जिम्मेदारी है। हम सब के कंधों पर ये जिम्मेदारी है, क्योंकि हम वहाँ बैठे हैं जहाँ से हम ये कर सकते हैं। हम सोसाइटी को मोटिवेट कर सकते हैं, सोसाइटी को दिशा देने का काम कर सकते हैं, और सोसाइटी में चेंज लाने का काम भी हमारा ही है। कल यहाँ डिस्कस हो रहा था, मैडम खंडूरी जी ने एक बात कही थी कि परिवार में जब एक बच्चा मेरी डॉटर को, मेरा बेटा जब मेरी डॉटर को धक्का देता है तो मैं उसको वहीं स्टॉप करती हूँ। तो ये संस्कार की बात है। संस्कार ट्रांसफ़र करने का काम किसका है? संस्कार ट्रांसफ़र करने का काम मदर का है, माँ का है। और चूंकि हम सब भी माँ हैं, इसलिए माँ को ही समझना होगा, माँ को ही करना होगा। और ये ट्रांसफ़र जब मदर करती है तो मुझे नहीं लगता कि कहीं भी महिलाओं के साथ अत्याचार हो सकता है या महिला कहीं असुरक्षित हो सकती है। आज जितना भी वातावरण में चाहे बलात्कार की घटना हो, चाहे यौन शोषण की घटना हो, वो सबसे बड़ा कारण है कि हमने ट्रांसफ़र ऑफ संस्कार ख़त्म कर दिया है। हम ट्रांसफ़र नहीं करते हैं, हम नए विचारों के साथ आगे बढ़ते हैं, लेकिन नए विचार भी तभी सक्सेस हो सकते हैं जब सोसाइटी में शांति हो, महिलाओं का सम्मान हो। इसलिए अपनी बात को यहीं पूरा करते हुए आपने मेरी बात को बहुत ध्यानपूर्वक सुना। आपको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। जय हिंद, जय भारत।
Thank you, madam, for those candid words and words of wisdom and experiences that you shared with us. For the concluding remarks, may I call the moderator of the session, Srimati P.K. Srimati, former Member of Parliament from Lok Sabha.
Dear sisters and brothers, I only take a few minutes because time is very limited. Our next session is going to be started on 11:45 or 12 o'clock. So, our honorable speakers, 4 speakers, our Mrs. Shashi Panja, Honorable Minister of Women and Children Welfare from Child Welfare from West Bengal, point out so many relevant points. In one important point, she insisted on the importance of state policies and explained how education and economic independence give confidence to women. That is very important. While commenting on Child Marriage Prohibition Act, she said that the act has failed. That is very true. Another point she mentioned about the unpaid domestic work. That is always feminist makes a big legal gap. That's also very true. It's a very relevant point also. Justice Honorable Judge Mrs. Anu Sivaraman, our Kerala High Court Judge, I proudly say that she stated so many important points and relevant points also. She explained 2 types of gaps that need legislation and that have defects in laws also. The point she brought in front about our dowry, about the one Dowry Prohibition Act and the penal provisions on domestic violence, which are under the general laws, need more discussions, I think. And also it is very critical situation in the POSCO cases registered among the tribal community, she mentioned very seriously. That's also we have to address. Mrs. Rakhi Birla, her speech was very inspiring, and she's an Honorable Deputy Speaker of Delhi. She pointed out the importance of education. That is very true. She also she pointed out that we should make aware of our women of the rights, and we should think how can we effectively implement our laws and schemes also. More than that, she herself is an example for strong and confident women. Dear sisters and brothers, women's rights and legal gaps. Right to vote. Every citizens have right to vote. Women have also right to vote. But why in other sector? Why the gap? justice denied is justice delay is justice denied. So we have to fight for our rights, constitution rights. We never allow the gap, legal gap in the laws, because Parliament is passing, enacting, and Assembly also passing the law, but the law is not implementing perfectly. So we should fight. We shall overcome. One day we shall overcome. Women shall overcome, and we face all the difficulties. So we have to fight jointly. That is my opinion when I hear the excellent speech made by our four distinguished guests.
Thank you, ma'am, for the concluding remarks. May I now call upon Srimati E.S. Bijimol, Honorable former MLA of Kerala Legislative Assembly, to deliver the vote of thanks.
It is really a wonderful opportunity to us to gather here. First, I thanks to our speaker, Sri M.B. Rajesh, in the name of all the women, legislators and invitees gathered here. Same time, our Niyamasabha Secretariat and staff, all the arrangements, they are made for us. We had a very serious and a meticulous discussion on our women's rights and legal gaps. Nevertheless, let me come to the duty entrusted to me. First and foremost, I would like to thank Srimati Dr. Shashi Panja, Minister for Women and Children, West Bengal. She shared her experience and views for us. I would like to extend my gratitude to Honorable Judge Janu Shivaraman. She made her speech short but valuable thoughts and ideas. I also would like to extend my gratitude to the Honorable Guestess, Srimati Rakhi Birla, Deputy Speaker Delhi, Srimati Anita Badel, MLA and a former Minister of Rajasthan. A special thanks to Srimati teacher who moderated the seminar, and Sri K. Shantakumari, MLA, she welcomed us. Last but not the least, thanks to everyone who actively participated in the seminar. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. This session 3 on women's rights and legal gaps now come to an end. Before we break for tea, for a very short break of tea for 10 to 15 minutes, there are a couple of announcements that I would like to make for the address to the notice of the delegates. Tomorrow there is a field trip which is arranged for all of you to 3 different destinations. Many of you have not notified which place you would like to visit. So it would be of great help if you could just notify us in the reception counter that where you would like to go. There are 3 destinations which are available: Ponmudi, Ashtamudi Lake and Kanyakumari. So if you could let us know where you would like to visit, that would be of great help, because so that we can make all the prior arrangements of food and travel. Also today evening we would be visiting the City Mall and Kovalam Beach. That also, if you could let us know where would you like to visit, that would be the travel and the other arrangements could be made beforehand. And only that many numbers of guests and facilities would be made available. So request all of you to kindly notify us at the reception desk where would you like to visit. Thank you. Like yesterday, we'll break for tea here, a very short break of 10 minutes. Request all of you to join us for tea on either sides of the lounge which is arranged for you, and be back in 10 minutes for the next session on the theme Underrepresentation of Women in Decision-Making Bodies. Thank you.